Alright, so as we can see in this section right here, we have the small intestine. And now I know a lot of you guys have been having some issues with the small intestine, so we're just going to go over some defining features of each of the sections. So first, before we go into any of the further, I want you guys to see my little pointer. So since there's no arrow on like the iPad or anything, I'm going to be using this little guy. If you look on the top left-hand corner of it, that's when I'm pointing at something. Just look at the top left-hand corner always so you can see what I'm pointing at. That's really the best way I can use a pointer on this. Anyways, going forward, we're going to be looking at just the similarities of them first. When you're first looking at these guys, as you can see, they're kind of similar, right? When you're looking at the mucosal layer and looking at the external muscularis layers, they're all very similar. They all really kind of look the same. So what I'm going to be going over in this video is just really how to really differentiate them pretty fast. So the first section we're going to go to is this one all the way over here on the far left-hand side. Okay. So again, when we're looking at the mucosal layer right here, we see a beautiful array of papilla. We are seeing, all of our, let me zoom in a little bit more. All of our wonderful goblet cells, our lamina propria over here. It's just a very beautiful section here, to be honest with you. But the thing that really differentiates this part of the section from all the other ones is these glands right in here. You guys see all those glands? So these glands are mucosal glands, right? So they're mucus glands, and they're found in the submucosa. Now this is the only part of the organ that actually has these glands. These glands are called Brenner's glands or Brunner's glands or submucosal glands, okay? And the only place found in the GI that have these Brunner's glands is going to be the duodenum, okay? So right off the bat, the very first thing you can do to differentiate this from all the other parts of the small intestine, does it have Brunner's glands? If yes, this is a duodenum. And that's how we're going to end it here with the duodenum. So look, does it have Brunner's glands? Yes, duodenum. Okay, now let's go to our next section. So I'm going to skip this one for now in the middle. I'm going to go over here. Okay, so first, when you're looking at this, we're going to be looking at the submucosal layer. We do not see any, oops, sorry about that. We do not see any Brunner's glands, right? Nothing in submucosal make it look like that. Actually, there's a pretty small submucosa around the entire portion of this part of the small intestine. However, what you do see are these secondary lymph follicles. Do you guys see that when I'm outlining right there? There's one, there's another. Here's one right here, this one, this guy, this guy. You guys see that? These are all the submucosal glands. I'm sorry, not submucosal glands. These are all secondary lymph follicles, okay? We call these secondary lymph follicles Peyer's patches, all right? Peyer's, don't really care again. But what they are, they're secondary lymph follicles, right? And they're forming patches in the submucosa, all right? And now, just like the Brunner's glands for the duodenum, these Peyer's patches are only found in the ileum of the small intestine. All right, so looking at a big piece, you can see the secondary lymph follicles right here. These Peyer's patches. All right. Another thing to note, and actually no, let's just go to their third specimen, and then we'll come back to this here in a moment. All right. So going back to this guy, all right, so we skipped him first. So this guy, let's go ahead and look at submucosa, all right? So looking at submucosa, well, we don't see any Brunner's glands, right? We don't see any of those mucus glands in the submucosa, right? And we don't see any lymph follicles, right? We don't see any lymph anywhere in this guy. And we can zoom in, and, it's, looking pretty clean in the submucosa, right? So now let's go ahead and just put that down as one of the features, actually. So one feature of this part of the small intestine is that it doesn't have any of the special submucosal features, right? It's kind of bland in there, okay? So the only portion of the small intestine that does not have any of the features, such as the Brunner's glands or the Peyer's patches, has to be the jejunum, okay? So now, another thing that you can kind of tell from it, however, this one is kind of to each their own, if you may. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit, okay? So we have a nice excellent view of the epithelium of this. Okay, so we have this wonderful papillary epithelium here, right? You can see, let me zoom in a little bit better. Yeah, this is a perfect specimen. So you can see the pale staining goblet cells right here, right? These pale staining mucus secreting goblet cells right here in the epithelium, and everything just seems very organized, if you may, right? You're not seeing a whole lot of messy connective tissue in the lamina propria. Everything's looking nice and uniform, very clean, if you may. Let's see if I can find, like even over here, everything's very nice and clean, very clean cut, not a whole lot of connective tissue in the lamina propria. And you have goblet cells, but it doesn't seem like a whole lot of goblet cells, right? Now, if we were to compare this one over to what is commonly confused as the ileum, and we were to zoom in on this guy. Now, if we were to look at the epithelium right here, right, that's what we have, the epithelium, we see our goblet cells are kind of, they're not as uniform, and our lamina propria has a lot more connective tissue in it, making it look a little bit more messy, if you may. You guys see what I'm talking about? Let's see if I can get in, like here, just more messy, not as organized, not as reticulate as if you may, just a little bit more messy. So that's like another way that we can kind of differentiate between the two of them. And that's really all I have to say. Again, this shows it a little bit better. The goblet cells kind of being more random, not as uniform, more messy. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say. I hope this helps out a little bit. I know that sometimes the small intestine can be kind of hard to differentiate them, but I kind of hope that this helped even out the edges and got you guys' determining what things are skills to the point. But anyways, hope this helped, and you guys have a great day.